In this year's symposium, we are discussing how Grow New York sits at the intersection of agriculture, innovation, and economic development. Our next fireside chat will explore how a purpose-driven company and university partnership can turn social impact into economic growth for New York communities. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Julie Suarez, the Associate Dean for Land Grant Affairs and Director of Translational Research Programs at Cornell University, and Nishant Roy, the Chief Impact Officer at Chobani. Let's welcome them.
Thanks so much, Kathy. So Nishant, let me just start and open this conversation by telling you how much I appreciate Chobani. You know, I've worked in New York's rural spaces almost my whole entire career, and Chobani's investment and Hamdi's vision to make good food for everybody, while really remembering its roots and being tied to our local rural spaces in New York State, is just deeply resonates with my heart. So I just wanted to start off by saying a thank you to Chobani for the leadership, the vision, and the connectivity to New York's rural spaces and places, which I love and value so deeply. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
And
Truly.
that's really what we're here today, really, is to talk about Chobani's wonderful vision, which is, of course, making good food for all. So much of your work, Nishant, and your role in the company is really focused on combating hunger in our rural spaces and places, as well as our urban communities. So can you tell us a little bit more about what Chobani's doing in the area of anti-hunger?
Sure. Thank you guys for having me come and participate in this. My first grow ever, and I'm obsessed. I want to come back now every year. Thank you for your part in actually making this all a reality for all of us here. So Chobani's history, it's a very impactful organization, an impactful company. We actually started by merging both impact and our food making all in one. So if you were to look at when Chobani started, the average amount of sugar in the yogurt category, take a guess on how much went into a single cup of yogurt.
Ooh, I'm a little afraid to guess.
It was quite high. The average amount of sugar in a single cup of yogurt back in 2007, when Chobani first started, was around 43 grams of sugar. 43 grams of sugar. That's like enough to really go into a soda, really. And if you were to look at the category today, the average amount of sugar in a single cup of yogurt is around 16 grams of sugar. And so really, it begs the question, like, what happened? What changed? Chobani's growth over time, as we continue to grow our market share, it forced a lot of our competitors to reformulate their food, and it led to this reduction in sugar, the increase in protein, increase in fiber, all these kind of nutrient-dense materials like inside your food is really what this was all about. And Hamdi had said, everything that we make, it's got to follow this very simple acronym. It's got to be delicious, nutritious, natural, accessible. We said, let's do that with yogurt. Let's take that into other categories and platforms. We did that next with coffee creamers itself. The leading brands out there are selling coffee creamers, sending marketing cues that it's got dairy in there. There's actually little to no dairy at all in there. And what we're doing is when we're making our yogurt, a byproduct of making yogurt is we're taking cream and putting in it and making it a coffee creamer at the same time. It's been going extremely well. We have about 12% of the market. We're using that as an opportunity to further have impact on people's lives and what they're consuming, as well as disrupting these categories. And when we're able to do that successfully, we're able to have more of an impact on addressing hunger in the communities that we call home. Chobani's seen growth. Just this year, we're going to see about 30% or so growth in our company across all these different platforms, from yogurt making to the coffee to the coffee creamers to our oat milk. And now we just recently bought a frozen food business called Daily Harvest. We're seeing this 30% growth, and we said, how can we take the DNNA, the delicious, nutritious, natural, accessible strategy, and bring it into addressing hunger? And what we've done, and really this has been inspired by a lot of the learnings that we've gotten out of Cornell, is really thinking about food system changes. We are in the business of providing access to natural and nutritious food. let's go out there and partner with different organizations, build coalitions, and find ways in which we can further disrupt. So we can tell our partners in the communities that we'll focus on making food, you guys focus on housing, you guys focus on skill building, you guys focus on transportation, and that's the way in which we can actually have a real forcing mechanism to address that level of anti-hunger change. And sorry, one last thing on this is that in moments in which we can't build those coalitions as quickly as we want them to, it's thanks again to partnerships like the one that we have with Cornell that we're actually able to innovate and create a product. In this case, we created a product called Chobani Super Milk, which I know we'll get a chance to talk about. But that product is one of the most demanded products in food banks and pantries across the entire country. So we're able to now provide a shelf-stable milk option for those that are undergoing times of strife and hunger, and have something available for them to consume.
Now, wrapping that all into the beginning of the conversation, Nishant, I love the super milk because not only is it shelf stable, it also packs that protein and the really good, healthy, nutritious power of milk into the hands of people who need it most. And as I understand super milk, that's only available for food pantries and emergency feeding situations, which is something that I think Chobani has always valued: partnerships, donations, giving back to the community. So I really applaud that. When we've talked a little bit about partnerships, Nishant, one of the things that I know that Chobani has been doing is been partnering with Cornell's own David Just, who's an economist in our business school. And I'm just kind of curious because we're talking a lot about food systems change. We're talking a lot about anti-hunger efforts. You know, what are you thinking about the economic value of some of the food donations that you're making? And can you share a little bit about your work with David?
Sure. The remarkable study, if you guys get a chance to check it out, look up Cornell's David Just. He was able to quantify what does it actually mean in terms of unlocking economic value in a community once you're making donations. And so it follows a very simple methodology of looking at the distance between where somebody resides and them getting access to food. In places like in upstate New York, in Shenango and Otsego counties, it takes on average about 45 minutes for somebody to go and access their nearest pantry. There's very minimal, if no, access to public transportation in the area. And if you look at access to the food bank, it's about 2 hours away. So what does this all lead to? We have to think about this from an economic perspective. How do we go and tell our lawmakers, how do we tell businesses the economic argument as to why you need to go and further invest in adjusting these food systems and making food more accessible? Or how do you encourage a lot of businesses to go out there and donate into our food banks and pantries? So one thing we wanted to get to with this study is to really unlock how much value is Chobani creating for these communities by making products like super milk available, making our yogurts available? Can we encourage other food manufacturers to also do the same in their communities across the country? And one thing, before I came to Chobani, I used to work at an organization that no longer exists. It's called USAID. And when we were out there talking to Congress about the rationale behind USAID, we had made the argument that for every dollar that you put into foreign assistance, that's actually $7 that you're saving in buying bullets. And I previously, before I was at USAID, worked in the United States Air Force. So I got a chance to appreciate both sides of this. And our lawmakers also separately had a chance to appreciate this. This is a chance in which to, again, bring that economic argument now to communities, to partners, and tell them that by donating items into a community, here's how much economic value you're actually unlocking for your constituents, for the retailers that are there, because they will be one-time recipients of some form of food assistance. They'll end up becoming customers and partners of yours and advocates in your community.
Nishant, that's really powerful. Working for New York State's land grant, I would say that we have an almost 160-year multi-generational partnership with New York's communities. And I always like to think that we're very people-centered. And so I just add to that, that from my perspective, the healthier our communities are, the healthier our economies are. So that's just a really good connectivity. You know, one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit, I started off with a thank you, but I'm going to again extend my thank you again and talk a little bit about our environmental sustainability efforts that we've partnered with Chobani and with New York's wonderful dairy farmers. I am, of course, very biased. I'm going to wear my heart on my sleeve and say I love New York's dairy farmers. I think New York State is the best state to be in.
We do too.
And so I'm so pleased to say that New York State just ranked #1 out of the whole entire nation in new dairy food manufacturing investment. Chobani, of course, is a huge partnership, but what's not perhaps talked about quite as much is the value that our farm families bring in New York State. And so I have to talk about that ranking, but I have to say too, with that, we feel a tremendous responsibility as a land grant to help our family farmers succeed and grow and supply those plants. We have two main innovation constraints, land and labor. And so just wanted to share a few statistics. Between 2014 and 2024, New York State farmers climbed from 11th in the nation in milk per cow to 5th in the nation for milk per cow. And you may be thinking, what the heck does that mean? That means we're producing more milk with less land, less inputs, and we're doing a far better job in our environmental sustainability so that we can push milk into those plants to make the wonderful products that Chobani has. And just to share, we are beating out our competitors. I have to say that. Pennsylvania is falling. Vermont is falling a little bit. Don't want to cast too much shade on our sister states in the Northeast. But of course, welcome Chobani's investment, and our farmers are certainly ready as our scientists to help see that continued growth while being mindful of our environment. So with that, Nishant, I had to also give you a little bit of a shout out too, because I talked about two innovation constraints, one being land, the other one being labor. And so just 2 weeks ago, Nishant and I were conversing to share that we had a whole group of local BOCES students, some of which are college bound, some of which are non-college bound, and really appreciate Chobani opening your doors, helping us with a little bit of support, making sure that we can bring kind of we called it a boot camp, and a nod to your military background, and making sure that we brought these students into a dairy manufacturing plant, talk to them of the value of these good jobs so that we can retain our rural youth in our rural spaces.
It's, it's an amazing time for our company. As we're growing this 30%, we realize we have to invest a great deal in capital and in infrastructure. We have our plant that's in Shenango County, and we've decided we're going to now create a whole new plant, a $1.2 billion investment that Chobani's doing to take an old Air Force base, the old Griffiths Air Force Base, and turn it into the new factory, what we're calling the next generation of food making in this country. There's not that many food companies in the country today that are doing natural food making, and this is our opportunity to really change the nature of how that works. And it starts with dairy, as it's the biggest commodity in which we buy, and we need about 180,000 cows to come and join us in this journey because we're going to need far more milk. Once we get Rome online and we complete all of our expansion, Chobani as a business alone will be buying about 5% of all of America's dairy, actually, so across the entire country, across New York and Idaho, which is where we're predominantly located from a manufacturing location. Smaller amount in Michigan, in Muskegon, Michigan. But while we're thinking about this growth, we're thinking about how can we think about herd sizes, how can we be leaning in further with our farmers. And I know there's been a lot of studies, Julie, that you guys have actually come out with when it comes down to environmental sustainability, economic stability for a lot of our farmers, because at one point in time, we were looking and seeing dairy farms close at a record clip. And and then we were thinking about how can we support those farmers, but at the same time, how can we think about supporting them in a way that's going to be good for the environment? And so, you guys are the oldest land grant university in the country, and have that expertise. I'm just curious, like, what are some of the learnings that you guys had on the environmental side of this?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think the Chobani partnership again has just been wonderful for us. One of the things that Chobani has helped us do is put more and more of our farmers at all sizes, because one of the things that we are always mindful of as a land grant is the need to support farmers at all scales of production, whether you have 1,000 cows or whether you have 100 cows. And so we've been very diligent at making sure that we're accessible to all of our farmers as best we can and meeting them at their needs. One of the interesting things that we've done is we've worked with farmers throughout New York State with Chobani support to do something called nutrient mass balance assessments, which is a very fancy buzzword. But what we're really trying to do is help farmers, again, increase that per cow efficiency so that maybe we don't need 180,000 cows. Maybe we can improve our nutrition, improve our usage of phosphorus by reducing it, improve our nitrogen use efficiency to make sure that we're boosting the components of milk, that protein that you talked about needing, to make sure that we can help our farmers on a per gallon basis actually supply you with more of the nutrients that you need, less of the water. And through that nutrient mass balance approach, we found that farmers that have worked with us have produced 50% more milk per acre with the same amount of land, the same amount of cows. And so that's a really important way that we're using science and technology to partner with Chobani to keep people fed, while again being mindful of those environmental sustainability goals.
That will be a massive unlock in terms of the overall reduction on methane and the impact in general over the environment. That's fantastic.
One of the great things about New York's dairy economy is that farmers represent only 6% of the total greenhouse gas emissions in New York State, and we are rapidly working to drive that down even further. The issue we have is methane, and so through some of this work with Chobani, we're making sure that our farmers are feeding their cows in a way that we really drive change in our climate and our environment in a positive way, while being mindful of our economy. So one of the questions that I had for you, Nishant, though, is this food systems puzzle that you've really focused your entire career on, which I sincerely appreciate and value. We've talked a little bit about how you're working in anti-hunger efforts and nutrition security, but what about food waste? Because that is, again, another piece of that environmental puzzle, and I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about some of Chobani's truly groundbreaking work in addressing and alleviating food waste.
So there's actually two big initiatives that we have going on right now. One is, I would say, greater scale. The other is going to take some real coalition building in order to achieve even greater reach. So the first is, if you think about our farmers, they're growing a commodity like a strawberry in parts of California or in Florida, the two biggest growing regions in the country. And
well, New York's pretty good too.
New York's pretty good too, exactly. And with respect to these commodities, the farmer, 30 to 40% of what they grow will never make it to the market. And they won't make it to the market because of some sort of food quality aspect or safety. It has actually everything to do with how it looks aesthetically. Either the strawberry is too big, or it's too small, or it's not red enough, or it's not triangular enough. And when we hear about that 30 to 40% of what a farmer is growing is unpredictable income for them. That's just something that we, with our purchasing power, can use to go and further disrupt. So we said, let's go to those farmers and let's start to buy some portion of what can never be sold in the marketplace, and let's start to aggregate it, meet our demands, and put it right into our yogurts. So we started with strawberries. We're going to be scaling to blackberries and raspberries next. And we're doing it with a partner called Planet Harvest. And we started with a pilot of just about 1 million pounds, and it's scaled since. So this is something that we're going to be able to really transform, I think, the way growers think about the crops that they're able to sell. Now the farmer has seen that they've actually had an increase in their income. They've actually seen that they've had a reduction in the amount of waste in terms of water and methane and other greenhouse gas emissions. And then if anything, we've actually heard from our customers that the Brix count, meaning the sugar that's inside that fruit, that fresh fruit, is actually a little bit higher, meaning we could actually work to reformulate our products and further reduce the amount of sugar that we're adding into our products. So it's a win-win-win from that perspective, and that's one way in which we're using our purchasing power to address food waste. The second way is we're looking at our retailers. Again, going back to this example of upstate New York, Shenango County, Otsego County, not many areas in which to go get access to natural fresh food unless you're going to the Amish market or you go make the trek to go to the Walmart or Price Chopper. If you're not able to do those things, you got to find some way in which to get access to natural food. Dollar General is starting to lean in, and they're saying we're going to provide some milk and other kind of fresh items in their stores. They're growing by leaps and bounds, this retailer. We said to them, look, I recognize that not everyone's going to be aware of the fact that fresh milk is being sold at Dollar General. You're going to see some waste. We happen to have this mobile food pantry that is already distributed about 150 to 200,000 pounds of fresh food to areas throughout upstate New York. For those folks that are having difficulty accessing the pantry or accessing the food bank, And we said, can we take our mobile food pantry and pick up the waste that exists at those Dollar Generals and bring them to folks that are congregating in certain locations, thanks to support from the Department of Health. So that's been another way in which we've been thinking about addressing overall food waste and meeting an immediate need that when in a moment in time like right now where SNAP benefits have been cut, you're seeing the lines get longer, and now we're able to go and address that need in our communities. Thanks to our retailers and thanks to this amazing truck.
Nishant, that's truly inspiring. I have to share that when I went to the groundbreaking for the new plant, I was, well, not the groundbreaking, ribbon cutting announcement, whatever it was, I was super inspired by the opportunity, again, thinking about Chobani living its values, because at this wonderful event where you had all sorts of wonderfully inspiring people talking, including farmers, my hat's off to you guys for doing that, we also took the time afterwards to volunteer and pack a bunch of those boxes that were then going to the food pantries. And I just really appreciated that connectivity to Chobani's values about good food for all, and distributing wealth or good food into the community. So
yeah, it's very much part of Hamdi's mantra of like using business as a force for good. If you treat this, my function, my role, as a corporate social responsibility or something that's tied to a non-for-profit, at some point in time you're going to ask for donor dollars and you're going to need to go and raise. But if you tie it into the way you operate as a business, you actually can find ways in which to drive growth in your business. You can find ways to reduce your cost, and you can have a real impact on farmers' lives, on people in the community. So it's a real true blessing to work at a company that thinks about that at the forefront.
It truly is, and those mobile markets can really be a lifeline in a lot of our rural spaces in New York State and in other states as well. You know, I've looked at some economic research that really shows that, you know, when you're living in a food desert or in a SNAP desert, those mobile markets can really make the difference between people who are not as mobility able to get around in the community. So thank you. You know, as I look at the time, we're about to close, so I'm going to end with a fun question. First, I'm going to lobby you,
this was
admittedly.
All fun.
So I'm going to say one of my favorite fruits, and I hope other people in the audience can also relate to this, is the pawpaw, right? And kind of a native tree in New York State. Very, very, very excellent fruit, but incredibly perishable. So my comment to you is sometime think about maybe a pawpaw yogurt. I would love it.
Okay, okay.
If you've never had a pawpaw, I will make sure I send you a seedling and maybe you can grow it in your home in New York City. But I did want to actually ask you if you could name one favorite New York grown, New York made food product that is not a Chobani product. What would it be? And anything you want.
Oh man, okay. So I would be doing my boss a disservice by not mentioning this. A plug for a sister business, how he actually got started. He started with a feta cheese plant in Johnstown, New York. So it's called Euphrates Feta. There's no direct-to-consumer, it's only B2B sales. But let me be fair to this question. So I'll start with that, which is Euphrates Feta cheese.
Which is a good tasty cheese, I have
Which
to
is
say.
a fantastic feta cheese, truly. If you ever go to like a chopped salad chain, et cetera, all the feta is sourced from Euphrates, along with a lot of the vendors and so forth, if you happen to be coming in New York City and so forth. The other area, the other business, I would say, two businesses, let me say. When we did our groundbreaking, our team did an awesome job of sourcing artisans and ingredients and manufacturers all across New York into a gift bag that we gave away to everyone that attended.
I really love the soap.
Right? And one of my favorite food products, though, that came out of it was actually Syracuse salt. And it is just fantastic. It's like got rosemary that's mixed in with this sea salt. So that's one other plug for a good New York-made, New York-born food business. The other is the UC Club. So it's a beer. I'm not a big beer drinker in general, but it's a historic brand, and it is in our community of Utica, and it does the job, I will say. So
That is just an excellent way to close. I will share with you that my favorite food product, other than New York wines, which are spectacular, and admittedly I have many favorite New York State wines, but I have to share my favorite Chobani product with you, drinkable yogurts. Love them.
Yes.
And the product innovation and the entrepreneurship that Chobani brings to the dairy case is something I truly enjoy. So those mixed berry drinkable yogurts, those are totally my fave.
I was just about to ask you, what's your favorite flavor? Because now I got to send you the favorite flavor.
I won't say no. Given how many I drink on a weekly basis, I will not say no. Nishant, this has been a truly enjoyable conversation. I really appreciate Chobani's decision to relocate again and invest and expand in New York State. And I assure you, we are poised as a land-grant community, and I know I can speak for all of our farm families to say we're here to help you, and we are ready and able and eager to help supply those plants. It's truly wonderful.
Thank you, and thank you again for what you've done with Grow. I mean, this is truly awe-inspiring. Everything about Chobani is founded on entrepreneurship, and to watch these presentations, it inspires me. I can't tell you the number of people I've texted about these presentations and how it gets us reinvigorated to think about what's the next big milestone and plateau and platform that we're going to go and disrupt. Thanks to bright minds like yourself. So thank you.
We look forward to having you back every year. And now for the audience, we'll say we'll resume in just a few moments for the next block of pitches. So thank you again.